So have you ever noticed that planning like a 2-week vacation is incredibly stressful?
Oh, absolutely. It's a logistical nightmare.
Right. I mean, it's ridiculously expensive, and it often leaves you needing a completely separate vacation just to recover from your actual vacation.
Yeah, the post-vacation slump is very real.
Exactly. And yet, biologically speaking, your body is actually drawing far more restorative power from all that absolute logistical chaos than it would from, say, sitting alone in a silent, dark room for 3 days.
Which is, I mean, it's one of the great paradoxes of human psychology. We tend to look at rest through this highly utilitarian, almost industrial lens, you
Yeah,
know?
like we're machines or something.
Right. We assume rest just requires a literal lack of movement or an absence of work.
We totally treat human rest like a smartphone battery. You just plug it into the wall, wait for the little icon to turn green, unplug it, and go right back to the grind.
Yeah, it's a very binary way of thinking about it,
Yeah,
on or off.
right. But today, we are taking a deep dive into a stack of research notes, sociological studies, and psychological articles that completely dismantle that battery idea.
They really do tear it apart.
They do. Because the mission today is to show you that celebrations, whether we are talking about a massive, deafening global cultural festival or just a highly personal, quiet weekend ritual, they're actually vital psychological vitamins.
You'll love that term, psychological vitamins.
Yeah, and sophisticated cultural technologies.
Yeah.
Because we're looking at the psychology, the sociology, and the biology of why we celebrate.
And if we look at the modern loop of constant productivity that honestly most of us are trapped in right now, it becomes very clear that celebrations are far more than just arbitrary breaks in the schedule.
Right, they aren't just days off work.
Exactly. They're incredibly sophisticated reset systems. Because, like you said, we are not lithium-ion batteries. We are complex biological organisms.
Yeah, deeply complex.
And these rituals are absolutely essential for navigating life, maintaining our mental health, and actually achieving any real sense of self-fulfillment.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to truly understand why a chaotic festival is more restorative than like a 3-hour nap, we really have to look at what's happening under the hood.
Yeah, the biology of it is wild.
And I think the best place to start is actually long before the party even begins.
Sure.
Like before the first firework goes off or the first guest even knocks on your door, there is this profound biological shift happening inside your brain.
This is such a crucial starting point because we often mistakenly believe that the benefit of a holiday happens exclusively, well, during the holiday itself.
Right, on the actual calendar day.
Yeah, but the sources highlight this incredible phenomenon known as the dopamine of anticipation.
The dopamine of anticipation.
Exactly. The psychological and biological benefits begin weeks or, honestly, sometimes even months before the actual event takes place.
Which, I mean, that feels true to lived experience, right?
Completely.
The mood boost you get from just looking forward to an event is often just as powerful as the event itself. Sometimes, let's be honest, the anticipation is actually way better than the party.
Yeah, we've all been to parties that didn't quite live up to the hype.
Totally. But why does just thinking about a future event physically change us in the present? Like, how does that work?
Well, it comes down to how the brain rations energy. The act of anticipating a festival, or any celebration really, generates a massive amount of positive affect and motivation.
Okay.
It acts as a vital buffer against immediate daily stress. So when you are going through a particularly grueling period at work or maybe dealing with difficult personal circumstances, having a guaranteed period of joy on the horizon provides you with forward momentum.
Interesting.
Yeah, your brain essentially says, I can expend this energy now to deal with the stress because I know a guaranteed reward is coming.
Oh, wow. That makes me think of like the buffer on a streaming video.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, you know, when your internet is a little slow and you're sweating, worried the movie's going to freeze right at the good part. But it keeps playing flawlessly because it's already loaded like 3 minutes ahead.
Right, it's got that safety net.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Having that sacred pocket of time on the horizon, that upcoming holiday or trip, it acts exactly like that buffer.
It really does.
It gives you the resilience to endure the stressful, lagging parts of a regular week without your whole biological system just crashing.
And what's fascinating here is the biological imperative underlying that buffer. Modern life really demands that we exist in a state of constant productivity.
Always on.
always on. What psychologists call the doing mode. You are always solving problems, always answering emails, always optimizing your time.
It's exhausting just thinking about it.
It is. And this constant doing leads to severe cognitive fatigue. So festivals act as a hard stop to that cycle. They force a biological transition into being mode.
The being mode, I like that.
Yeah, it's a state of mindful presence where you aren't trying to achieve anything at all. You're just existing.
But the sources point out it isn't just a mental shift, right? It's a deeply physical change in the body, driven really heavily by routine.
Absolutely. The physiology completely shifts.
The research focuses a lot on the ritualized predictability of holidays. But help me understand the causality there. Like, why does lighting a specific candle or eating the exact same traditional foods year after year suddenly cause my cortisol levels to drop?
Because human brains are fundamentally prediction machines.
Okay, prediction machines.
Right. In evolutionary terms, uncertainty equals danger. When you don't know what's going to happen next, your brain keeps your nervous system on high alert.
Which means pumping out stress hormone.
Exactly. Pumping out cortisol, our primary stress hormone, just in case you need to fight or flee.
Right, just in case a tiger jumps out of the bushes.
Exactly. But when you engage in a deeply familiar ritual like lighting the same candles your family has lit for decades or reciting specific prayers, your brain stops calculating risk.
Oh, because it knows the script.
Yes. It signals to your nervous system, I know exactly what happens next, therefore I am safe.
Wow.
And that predictability directly triggers the body's relaxation response. Your sleep improves. Your circadian rhythms actually regulate. It's a literal nervous system reset.
Okay, I understand the mechanism there, but that brings up a pretty massive contradiction that I want to push back on.
Okay, for it.
If the ultimate goal is just signaling safety, lowering cortisol, and resetting the nervous system,
Yep.
isn't a quiet night alone in a dark, silent room technically the safest, most predictable environment possible?
You would think so, logically.
Right. Why on earth do we expend so much physical and financial energy traveling across the country, sleeping on terrible air mattresses, cooking massive feasts, and gathering in loud, chaotic family groups just to achieve rest?
That is the core of the paradox you mentioned earlier, and it points to a pretty fundamental misunderstanding of what human beings actually need to recover from the modern world.
Okay, what are we missing?
Well, if solitary rest were the only thing we needed to thrive, we would just sleep whenever we weren't working.
True.
But human beings have a deeply wired psychological and biological need for relatedness.
Relatedness.
Yeah. Solitary rest cures physical fatigue, sure, but it does absolutely nothing for psychological isolation.
Oh, I see.
We need what sociologists call social glue to pull us out of the fragmentation of modern life.
And the research refers to this social glue using a very specific, honestly, almost poetic term.
Yes, collective effervescence.
Collective effervescence. I love the sound of that phrase. It sounds like champagne bubbles.
It was a concept developed by the sociologist Emil Durkheim.
But what does it actually mean in practice?
Well, it functions a lot like champagne, actually.
Yeah.
Durkheim used it to describe the intense harmony and shared social energy that you feel when a group of people performs the exact same ritual together.
Okay.
It's that feeling of being swept up in a group emotion, where the boundary between yourself and the crowd sort of just dissolves.
So think about, like, the last time you were at a concert or a wedding, and everyone started singing the exact same song at the top of their lungs.
Yes, perfect example.
That electric goosebump feeling you get, that isn't just you being in a good mood. That is Durkheim's collective effervescence in action.
Precisely.
But how does that actually work in the brain? Like, what's causing the goosebumps?
When you engage in communal music, synchronized dance, or even when a congregation shares tears during a poignant ceremony, you are literally syncing your breathing and your heart rate with the people around you.
Wait, literally syncing your heart rate?
Yes, your brain recognizes this synchronized movement as herd safety. It shuts off the amygdala's threat response entirely.
Wow.
And it releases a powerful cocktail of neurochemicals. We're talking about a massive flood of oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone.
Right.
We get serotonin, which stabilizes our mood, and a rush of endorphins from the physical act of laughing or dancing or singing.
The sources give some really beautiful examples of this across different global cultures, too.
They really do.
They look at Lebaran, which is Eid al-Fitr in Indonesia, where families will travel massive distances across islands just to reunite and eat together, specifically to strengthen those kinship bonds.
Yes, moving heaven and earth just to be in the same room.
Exactly. And they highlight the lighting of lamps during Diwali, the intense communal energy of Carnival, and the shared multi-day rituals of Hanukkah.
And beyond the immediate rush of neurochemicals, this collective effervescence builds tangible social capital.
Social capital, what does that look like?
It creates emotional safety nets. When you celebrate together, you build trust and reciprocity with your community.
Which you really need when things go wrong.
Exactly. Solitary rest simply cannot provide a safety net for when your life actually gets hard.
That makes total sense.
And for diaspora communities or immigrant populations living far from their ancestral homes, maintaining these traditions provides what the research calls existential anchors.
Existential anchors, that's a heavy concept.
It is, but it's vital.
An anchor keeps the ship from drifting away in a storm. How does a festival do that for a person?
Well, in an increasingly globalized, digital, and often highly fragmented world, it is very, very easy to feel invisible or disconnected.
Yeah, just lost in the algorithm.
Exactly. Engaging in a traditional cultural festival acts as that anchor by affirming your self-worth. It connects you to a lineage.
Right.
It reminds you that you are not just a solitary worker bee producing economic value. You belong to a history, a family, and a deeply rooted community.
And that shared energy, that sense of belonging, it doesn't just evaporate when the festival ends and everyone goes home.
No, it sticks with you.
It fundamentally alters your memory, which shifts us into the next major insight from our sources. This effervescence actually structures how we remember our entire lives.
Through the creation of what psychologists call temporal landmarks.
Temporal landmarks. Let's break that down.
Well, without temporal landmarks, our lives would just be a continuous, undifferentiated stream of tasks.
Wake up, commute, work, eat, sleep, repeat.
Exactly. The years would become an absolute blur. You wouldn't be able to tell 2018 from 2022.
Oh, totally.
Holidays act as punctuation marks in the sentence of your life. They create the chapters.
Think about reading a novel with no paragraph breaks, no chapters, just a solid unbroken wall of text for 500 pages.
That sounds miserable.
Right. But that is exactly what a life without celebrations feels like to the human brain. Temporal landmarks break our experience of time into manageable, digestible chapters that we can actually recall.
And because they are recurring, like an annual festival that happens at the exact same time every year, they provide this incredible built-in mechanism for a life review.
A life review.
Yeah, you naturally benchmark your life, comparing where you were last year during this specific holiday to where you are right now.
It's a natural measuring stick.
Yeah.
You might think, last Thanksgiving, I was incredibly stressed about a job interview, and this Thanksgiving, I'm settled into my new career.
Exactly.
Or last Eid, we were mourning a terrible loss, and this Eid, we were welcoming a new baby into the family.
Yes, and this benchmarking is how we measure our own personal growth and resilience over time.
And the sources mentioned it also acts as a philosophical alignment, right?
It does. The sources note that many of our major holidays are deeply rooted in specific core values.
Like, Thanksgiving is explicitly about gratitude.
Right. And the new year is about renewal and setting intentions. Holidays like Lent or Eid al-Adha are rooted in themes of empathy, charity, and sacrifice.
So it's not just about eating food.
No, engaging in these holidays forces us to do a periodic values check. It pulls you out of the daily grind and asks you, are your daily actions actually aligning with your deeper beliefs?
So what does this all mean? Well, there's a striking line from the sources that really captures the essence of this.
I think I know the one you mean.
It says, a meaningful life isn't just lived, it's remembered and narrated.
That is such a powerful quote. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's really about finding narrative coherence.
Narrative coherence.
Yeah, a self-fulfillment isn't just about accumulating a random pile of happy moments. It's about feeling that your life has an arc, a direction, and a real meaning.
It's the story you tell yourself about yourself.
Exactly. And these landmarks provide a connection to the transcendent.
Meaning they connect us to things much larger than our own individual worries.
Precisely. They link us to history. For example, the observance of Juneteenth, which carries immense historical weight, legacy, and community resilience.
Right.
Or they link us to the natural world, like festivals that align with solstices and equinoxes.
Which ties our personal biological rhythms to the actual rhythms of the earth.
Exactly. Ultimately, these narrative chapters help us answer the two most fundamental human questions. Who am I and where do I belong?
But to write a truly memorable chapter in that life narrative, you can't just be the exact same rigid, stressed-out protagonist all the time.
No, you definitely cannot.
You occasionally have to break character. You have to step completely outside of your everyday, serious adult identity, which explains why festivals almost mandate what the research calls structured indulgence.
Yes. Structured indulgence. This is an area of the research that is vastly underappreciated in adult life, honestly.
The psychology of play.
Right. Celebrations offer a socially sanctioned space for the temporary suspension of our everyday discipline.
You are actively encouraged to eat the rich food, stay up far too late, and just make a mess.
Yeah, to let go.
I have to push back on this a little, though.
Okay.
We typically associate play with children, building forts, dressing up in costumes, playing pretend.
Sure.
But adults have mortgages. Adults have quarterly reviews. Why is it biologically or psychologically critical for, say, a 45-year-old accountant to wear a mask at a festival or sing loudly in the street?
Because play is a vital tool for adult self-actualization.
Really, play.
Yes. We spend so much of our adult lives rigidly boxed into very specific, narrow roles. You know, you're the competent professional, the responsible parent, the quiet neighbor.
We wear a lot of serious hats.
We do. And festivals provide a rare, socially acceptable arena for identity exploration.
It's like a psychological pressure valve.
Exactly. Imagine a highly disciplined, high-pressure corporate executive.
Yeah.
Day in and day out, their entire identity is tied to restraint, logic, and serious decision-making.
Sounds stressful.
It is. But during a cultural festival, they might put on vibrant, colorful, traditional attire. They might dance in public.
Right.
They might participate in a theatrical performance. That psychological release, that sudden access to creative agency is incredibly powerful.
It shakes them out of the routine.
And it triggers what positive psychology calls flow states. It builds self-esteem and infuses them with a sense of vitality that actually carries over into their everyday life.
It reminds them that they are multidimensional humans, not just economic outputs.
Exactly. Without occasional socially sanctioned indulgence, constant restraint just leads to inevitable burnout.
It does. But, and this is a significant but from the research,
Ah, yes. We have to talk about the dark side.
the dark side of celebrations. Because let's be entirely real here. If we aren't careful, all this forced play, mandatory family time, and heavy tradition can become utterly exhausting instead of exhilarating.
It really can. The sources are very clear that the benefits of celebration are not automatic just because you showed up to the party.
Right. Just being there doesn't cure your burnout.
No. If the event is forced, or if it carries intense financial strain, it can actually spike our stress levels far beyond our normal baseline.
The risks are very real, and over-commercialization is a massive one. We feel intense cultural pressure to buy the perfect gifts, host the flawless dinner party, and have the most elaborate decorations.
It becomes a performance.
Exactly. And then you throw in the social comparison trap, which is practically supercharged by social media.
Oh, social media makes it so much worse.
You log online and see perfectly curated photos of someone else's holiday gathering, and suddenly your own perfectly fine celebration feels inadequate.
You start judging your own life.
Right. Instead of feeling relatedness and belonging, you feel excluded or envious.
And we also have to acknowledge that traditional holidays can be incredibly isolating for people who do not have strong social networks.
Or who have estranged or toxic families.
Exactly. The cultural expectation of collective effervescence can actually amplify feelings of loneliness when you don't have a safe group to experience it with.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because of those pressures, the sources highlight a fascinating modern shift in how people are fulfilling this psychological need for rest and meaning.
Yes, there's a real pivot happening.
We are seeing the rise of secular, highly personal micromoments of celebration. The research draws a sharp contrast between the massive, group-oriented cultural festivals we've been talking about and these quiet, hyper-personal rituals aimed at pruning obligations.
Pruning obligations. I love that phrasing. It's things like the screen-free Sabbath.
What's that look like in practice?
You basically designate one day or even just a weekend where you completely disconnect from digital noise.
No phones, no emails.
None. Or something like a personal review weekend, where you essentially throw a private festival for yourself.
A festival for one.
Exactly. You go to a cabin or just sit in your living room with a really good meal and you celebrate your own personal wins, reflect on your goals, and intentionally strip away the commitments that are draining you.
I hear that, but honestly,
Yeah.
a personal review weekend sounds an awful lot like just another exhausting productivity hack disguised as rest.
I can see why you'd say that.
Right.
Yeah.
If I'm sitting in a cabin reviewing my goals, how do we keep these personal rituals from just becoming more homework? How is that actually restorative?
That is a very fair critique. The difference lies in what the psychologists call cognitive sovereignty.
Cognitive sovereignty, okay.
Traditional cultural or religious festivals are wonderful for community and heritage, but they are highly constrained.
They have rules.
Right. They happen on fixed calendar dates, and they require a massive amount of social coordination and compromise.
You have to agree on the menu, the time, who sits where.
Exactly. Cognitive sovereignty basically means nobody else gets to dictate how you recharge. You own the mental real estate completely.
Oh, I see. You aren't adhering to someone else's timeline or a culture's rigid expectations.
Right. You are asserting your own autonomy. If sitting in a cabin reviewing your goals feels like homework, then your personal ritual shouldn't be that.
It should be whatever actually recharges me.
Yes. Your personal ritual might be dedicating an entire Sunday to baking bread in total silence. It offers complete cognitive flexibility. You are creating a reliable cadence for rest that fits your specific immediate psychological needs rather than serving the needs of the group.
So it's a necessary balance. We need the massive, loud, traditional festivals for our sense of belonging, our heritage, and that oxytocin hit of collective effervescence.
We absolutely do.
But we also desperately need these quiet, flexible, personal rituals for our focus and our cognitive sovereignty.
Because the magic of celebration, the actual alchemy that turns a regular day off into a potent psychological vitamin, it requires deep intentionality.
Intentionality is the key.
It really is. The most fulfilling experiences happen when we balance tradition with flexibility. It is about prioritizing people and meaning over perfection.
Letting go of the perfect aesthetic.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that the point of the gathering isn't the flawless table setting or the perfect Instagram photo. It's the actual human connection.
It's prioritizing meaning over noise.
Always.
This has been such a paradigm shift. We set out to unpack why holidays are more than just an excuse to sleep in, and I think we've completely shattered that old smartphone battery metaphor.
I don't think I can ever look at a weekend the same way again.
Me neither. Holidays, celebrations, and festivals aren't just empty, dead spaces on a calendar where work temporarily stops.
No, they are doing heavy lifting for our psyche.
They are, as the sources beautifully put it, cultural technologies for meaning, connection, and renewal.
They really are the architecture of a flourishing life. They remind us that life is not just a continuous, monotonous stream of tasks to be endured.
It's not just checking boxes.
Right. It is rhythmic. It is shared. It is deeply meaningful.
From the dopamine hit of anticipation that gets you through an incredibly tough month at work.
Like that video buffer.
Exactly. To Durkheim's collective effervescence that physically binds you to your community, all the way to the cognitive sovereignty of a quiet, fiercely protected, screen-free Sabbath.
They all play a vital role.
These moments are the pillars that hold up your life's narrative. Which brings us to a final, lingering thought for you to take away from this deep dive.
The big question.
The sources ask a really profound question. What temporal landmark will you plant next to anchor your story?
It's a great question to reflect on.
But let's take that a step further. If a meaningful life is built on the days that stand out from the routine, if we are not just batteries waiting to be recharged but stories waiting to be written, what if you didn't wait for a calendar or a culture to tell you when to celebrate?
Ooh, I like where this is going.
What if you invented a completely new, hyper-specific holiday just for yourself or your family this very week? What exactly would it celebrate? What would the ritual be? And how might planting that flag change the narrative of your entire year?